You're listening to the Pillinger Miller Tarallo PMT Podcast, featuring conversations with industry leaders on today's important legal and civil defense topics, with a focus on the insurance industry. Today's feature is From Where I Sit and is an interview with one of the three founding partners of the PMT law firm, Marc H. Pillinger. Here's your host, PMT partner, Thomas Bona.
This is From Where I Sit with Marc Pillinger, one of the founders of Pillinger Miller Tarallo and a tireless mentor and educator. Marc, how was the pandemic year for you both personally and professionally?
I've been very fortunate, very lucky. We, as a law firm, we were able to keep everybody on staff without furloughing anybody. Everybody got their paychecks every 2 weeks, and something we're very proud of. We took care of our people first and foremost. We instituted very early in the game safety procedures. We had a consultant advise us as to what we had to do and should do to make our facility as safe as possible, and our staffing, and what we did in and what we did out. Personally, I'm very fortunate. Nobody got sick in my family. My children were gainfully employed. Ironically, my daughter has her PhD in international public health policy, as well as 3 master's degrees. So in case you were wondering why I'm still working for a living, now you know. And the pandemic, terrible way to put it, was right up her alley. And all of a sudden she became in great demand. Whereas before this, my wife and I were terrified that there were only going to be 2 jobs in the world for her, and both of them would have been filled. So we've been lucky, and I thank the Lord every day that we've been able to come through this the way we have.
Great. Now, Marc, you're widely recognized both within Pillinger Miller Tarallo and the outside larger legal community as an accomplished educator and teacher. How did this come to be?
Well, genetics. My father was a real estate attorney, and his office was right near City Hall. And he had a very dear friend who was an accounting professor at Pace. And long story short, this friend came to him one day and said, the contracts professor quit. We need somebody to teach contracts. Can you do it? Just at night, 1 semester. My father said yes. Many years later, he wound up retiring as the chairman of the law department at Baruch College. I've always enjoyed teaching, as all of my partners and associates and friends and family will tell you. I love to hear myself talk. So it's just fun. If I ever retire, that's what I would do. I would retire and teach. And I like the interaction with people, the questions. The best thing that can happen when you're lecturing is somebody to ask you a question you don't know the answer to, ironically enough, because that's the challenging thing. And you can say to them, I don't know the answer to that, but this is what I think. So that's that's a passion. The practice of law started out to be a passion. It's not a passion anymore. Teaching is the passion.
Well, learning and teaching are all part of lawyering. So It's
Sure.
all bundled together. And that's a terrific way to combine all of that, because you've created a training program within PMT for attorneys and new hires. Can you tell me a little bit about what the training consists of, how it's organized, and how you got started with this?
As we grew, I realized that the level of knowledge based upon the individual's attorney's experience varied greatly, and felt that it was important to create the baseline by which you knew that everybody, even if you didn't handle labor law cases, you had a working knowledge of the labor law. Also, as we hired more lawyers, young lawyers, they were coming out of law school with an excellent theoretical knowledge, but they really weren't prepared for the real world. And I felt that a lecture series in-house would be tremendously advantageous. And then I sent around an email to all of the attorneys and asked them what topics would they like to hear addressed. And we got in everything from no fault to I'd like to get lectures on anatomy. And so then I instituted that program and reached out to my partners to see who would volunteer to handle presenting the in-house lectures. And some of them were just as simple as the new rules, the new court rules, basic motion practice, as well as educational topics on the law itself. So we would have the lawyers this would be done after the workday, but not too far after. For the people who are in the office, we would bribe them with cake and cookies, and everybody could Zoom in because we set it up on a Zoom. We disseminated the material to the attorneys in advance of the lecture, which was very important, and opened it up to questions at the end of the lecture, if we had time, not only on the lecture material, but whatever else they might have a question on for that day that they had run into. And that was going along very well until the pandemic hit. In addition, what we do is every day we round table cases with the senior partners, trial attorneys, and it's not only for the lawyers to discuss value, but it is also to discuss their cases, to get insight from more experienced attorneys or just attorneys that aren't handling the file. So they're not that close. You know, sometimes on your own files, you can't see the forest for the trees. You get hung up on a piece of minutia. To take advantage of just discussing a case that they're handling with 5, 6, 7 other partners, senior attorneys, etc. And we do that every day. Sometimes during the summer, maybe we won't do it on Fridays, but for the most part, we do this every day, and everybody is invited to put a case or a topic on the agenda that they wish to discuss.
It comes across that you have a talent and a passion for teaching, training, and mentoring. When did you first recognize that you had the passion for training and mentoring and teaching, and how have you used it over the years to help other attorneys, both in PMT and outside of PMT?
So my first job out of law school, there was, I knew nothing. Thought I knew something, but I knew nothing. There was a gentleman by the name of Herb Minster, may he rest in peace, who truly took me under his wing and taught me how to draft a complaint, how to draft an answer, how to draft a bill of particulars. He really taught me the nuts and bolts of the business. And I so appreciated what Herb did for me that I decided then and there that ever given the opportunity, I would return the favor, because he didn't have to do it. He was a senior associate. I didn't even work under him. And he just saw the terror in my face and decided to help this poor kid out. So that's how it started. And since then, in addition to the in-house education that we've done, I've lectured for the New York State Bar Association, the New York State Academy of Trial Lawyers, the Bronx County Bar Association, many times, lecturing to other lawyers on topics that I felt were interesting and topical, and hung around after to answer their questions, because that's what I felt I was there to do. So also my lectures have been recorded and are available for people to look at as part of their continuing legal education.
Now, Mark, your first love was not the law, but rather, as I understand, was medicine. And I've come to know that you studied 2 years of medicine in Paris. How did you go from wanting to be a doctor to deciding to switch and become a lawyer?
I was pre-med in college, went to medical school in Paris for 2 years. Medical school in Paris is 6 years. And after 2 years, I decided that I didn't want to be in Paris another 4 years. With the benefit of hindsight, if I would have known that I was going to quit after 2 years, I would have had a wonderful 2 years in Paris instead of working like a dog. So I came back to the United States. I had a pre-med degree. I did not want to be a dentist. I did not want to be a hospital administrator. I had no talent and no skills. So when you have no talent and no skills and do not know what you want to do, you take the LSATs. And I did very well on the LSATs, surprisingly. And I applied late to a bunch of schools, all in New York, and was fortunate to get into several. And that's how I became a lawyer. And the way I became a litigator and defense attorney is I came out of law school with debt, with loans. And my first job was with a defense firm. And lo and behold, here I am today. So obviously, it was all the master planning on my part that resulted in me being a partner in this firm.
And of course, your mother was happy because if she couldn't have a son that was a doctor, she had a son who was a lawyer.
My mother was happy because my little brother, now mind you, but there's 8 years difference between us, is a professor of medicine at NYU, and he is a doctor. So I always say that it was okay by my mother, because even though she didn't get a doctor out of me, she got a doctor out of my brother. So he picked up the slack for me.
That's terrific. Now, what skills do you see as most important for training and mentoring new attorneys and the future leaders at PMT?
I have little patience for people who don't know how to write. And I realize that because I'm old, I still write things on a yellow pad, whereas all of the young associates type all their work themselves. But that's no excuse not to write a cogent sentence with proper grammatical applied. And that's my bugaboo. The thing that you have to teach a new lawyer, or even some of the more experienced lawyers, is while we are a profession, we also are a business. And if they don't bill their time, we can't bill our clients. And if we can't bill our clients, we don't get paid. And if we don't get paid, they don't get paid. So while I appreciate that they're working very hard, I'm not happy when at the end of a week, a lawyer who has worked hard has not put in their billing. The other thing that they have to learn is we are an advocate for our client's position. That does not mean that we ever represent something to the court that is not true. I always tell my lawyers that if you want to lecture on ethics, here it is. If your gut tells you it's wrong, don't do it. But as an advocate for your client, you have to present your case the best way possible. Coming out of law school, the young lawyers are used to writing both sides, presenting both sides of an argument to a professor. We're not here to present the plaintiff's argument to the judge. We're also not here to misrepresent the facts or the law. So they have to be taught how to construct an argument, how to deal with the weaknesses of their argument, and how to sum up on the strengths of their argument. So that's the things that have to be imparted. And again, that applies to experienced lawyers as well. Some of the really good trial lawyers do not write well, and vice versa.
What advice would you give to new attorneys today after everything that you've experienced in your legal career?
Don't become a lawyer. Oh,
we can't use that.
oh, okay. That was my answer. Just kidding.
Strike that comment.
I would advise them that they have to maintain a work-life balance. They have to keep perspective. Being an attorney is a service business, no matter what you do. You have to deal with your clients, and you have to be responsive to your clients and their needs. Even if you think that they're being nitpicky or asking for something that is really not timely. That's not for you to determine. The law business, especially in private practice, will eat up all of your time if you let it. You have to learn to prioritize. And that's one of the hardest things to do. I see many people, and sometimes even myself, focus on a project that is not due for 2 weeks and not work on the project that's due tomorrow. That look at the calendar and say, oh my God, I have plenty of time to get this done. This isn't due for 3 weeks. But the exigencies of life and the practice of law, 3 weeks goes very quickly. And if you are not good at time management, and you are not good at keeping and maintaining a calendar and a tickler system, dates can come up on you very fast. And it's easy to miss something. All of that said, with the appropriate time management, you can, lack of a better way to put it, have your cake and eat it too. You can have your family life. With my firm, we're firm believers in go see your kid play Little League, go to your child's play. We don't care if you do your work at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the evening, as long as you get your work done. You're a professional. If I can't rely on you to get your work done, then I have real problems, because you shouldn't be working here. So that's what I would tell them. Being a lawyer, especially now, is a difficult way to make a living. I suspect it's always been difficult. But, there are a lot of extraneous pressures put on you now that you cannot control. So you have to control what you can.
Great answer. Now, is there an area of the law that you most enjoy practicing? And if you can tell us, how did this come about?
Okay, this is another one of these totally disillusioning stories for young lawyers. The area of law that I most enjoy practicing is environmental litigation. How it came about is I was working for a firm. They got in an environmental case. Nobody handled environmental law. And so the partner called me into his office and said, paraphrasing, congratulations, you are now an environmental litigator, and gave me the file to handle. And it was totally on the job training. And I was taking all of these lectures and going to conferences on lead paint, asbestos litigation, mold litigation, oil spills, to learn as much as I could about both defenses, because I was on the defense side, and the medicine. And I guess the progress of life is I went from the student to the teacher. But I enjoy environmental law. It's challenging, and there's a lot of regulatory things you have to be aware of.
And it also calls into play your interest in medicine and science,
Yes,
right?
yes, it always helps. You know, if you're going to do personal injury work, a knowledge of medicine is invaluable because you have to be able to read the medical records and understand what your experts are telling you. So, you know, it's all come full circle.
Is there any other, thing that you'd like to tell us about, your background, mentoring, teaching, what you've accomplished and done?
I would conclude by saying that there's no such thing as a dumb question. There's only a dumb person who does not ask the question. Now, I'm not saying that somebody should come in to me and say, what's the statute of limitations for negligence in New York? You're smiling, Tom. That has happened because that's something you can look up yourself. But ask questions. You're never going to get yelled at for asking a question. Come to me or any of the partners if you have a problem. Most problems can be fixed, especially by people who have more experience. But if you don't tell us that you have a problem, then we can't help you fix your problem. And the ostrich head in the sand approach to problem solving does not work. So that's how I would conclude our discussion today.
That's a great ending. Thank you, Marc, for sharing with us your thoughts from where you sit, and we appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
My pleasure. Have a nice afternoon, everybody. Thank you.